Okay, guys, let us start now. My name is Ajay Parmar, and we are going to talk about the power pivot. We are going to talk about the use of the power pivot, how it is different from the normal pivot, and why actually you have to go and you should go and use the power pivot. Why I or anybody who is in the data analyst a field, data analytics field would encourage you to actually switch on to the power pivot from normal pivot as soon as you can. Why? What is the reason for that, right? So we will be doing all those things. We will be discussing about all those things. What is the difference between normal pivot, our traditional method of using the pivot, which was always pretty awesome, magical. You pivot, our normal pivot can do a lot of good things for us. We have created so many dashboards with that. So what is the need of power pivot? So I will be answering all these questions gradually, not in today's session. Okay. In today's session, we will keep it very short. The first thing first, you need to have a power pivot in your system, in your Excel. Okay. So I'm going to just clear I'm going to give you a clarity. I'm going to clear the air that, the sort of those doubts. Do I supposed to pay for the power pivot? Any money? I have to pay for the power pivot. Okay. And the one thing is that, do I need to download it? Do I need to download it as a software, or is it, inbuilt feature, right? And of course that how much data it can hold, right? It can hold. So these are the things I'm going to actually today answer in this the lecture number 1. Okay. Now the first thing first, how I can get the power pivot. Now if you look at my Excel, you find here I have a power pivot, and I'm going to talk about the manage, measure, KPI, add to data model, all that stuff, interesting stuff. But this is not by default I'm getting here. Okay, let's talk about first of all that which version it is not going to work. So guys, if you're using Office 2007, or I say that Excel 2007, you have to upgrade. It is not going to work. Okay, let's not even talk about the before versions, the prior versions. Nobody uses that, I guess. Last time when I was using Excel 2003 version, I think it was a year 2004 or 5. I don't remember exactly. long way back. Those were the days. Anyways, so the first thing is that you should have at least Excel 2010 version. Okay. In the Excel 2010 version, you need to go and download the Power Pivot from Microsoft website, obviously. Okay. And there is no charges. It's absolutely free. So go into Google and say that download Power Pivot if you have Excel 2010. You will be, just pick up the Microsoft link there, and from there you will have the download Power Pivot, this Power Pivot option. Click on the downloads. Download will happen maybe within 5 minutes, and that's it. Once your download is done, you have to go and restart your Excel. If let's say you have already opened the Excel and you have downloaded the software and you run that exe file, you don't see the Power Pivot, make sure you have reopened the Excel. So you will start finding the Power Pivot here. It's so simple. Now, my personal suggestion is that don't use the Excel 2010. Not because you can't use the Power Pivot, of course you can. But the point is that now we have Excel 2019. So I strongly, encourage you to at least go on the Excel 2013. Okay? Or maybe 2016. Right? And by the way, I'm using Office 2016. All right? There's Excel 2019 also now in the market, right? So for these Excel versions, if you're on these versions, you don't have to download. No download. It's inbuilt. It is inbuilt, but it will not be visible here. But till and unless you do some setting options, which I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I'm using Office 365. If you're using any of these versions, what we have to do is we will go in the file, okay, in the file, and we click on the options here. This Alt FT, file option. And in the add-ins, you go in the COM add-ins. Okay. So let me click on this add-in. Now here, you make sure that have the COM add-in. Okay. So once you have the COM add-in, click on the go. Once you click on the go here, as you can see, I have this check marked. In your case, for the first time, this will not be selected, obviously. So you have to go and select this and you click on the OK. Once you click on the OK, you will have the Power Pivot here automatically. That's it, guys. That's it. So that means you don't have to download the Power Pivot for these Excel versions. It's inbuilt, but you have to just go and do some settings, which I have just shared with you. Another thing, even if you are in Excel 2007, 2010, you don't have to actually work with the Power Pivot outside the Excel. Like in Power BI, we, go and do it. Like Power BI is a separate tool. You have to install it and you have to go and use it outside the Excel, right? Now, I know many of you haven't learned the Power BI from me, but I'm just telling you in case of Power BI, we installed it separately. So you can use it from outside the Excel, but Power Pivot will always be a part of this Excel. Doesn't matter which version you're going to use. And as far as how much data you can handle, well, it's really, really a big data. You know that Excel hands, if I go and use these 1 billion rows, even half of it, if I start using, I think I will not be able to use the pivot on that. Or if I'm using, my Excel file will start hanging, intermittently. And obviously the fun of using the Excel will disappear because every now and then your Excel will start hanging. In fact, it can even crash. So I can now go and handle 1 million, 2 million, maybe 10 billion of the data very, very easily. Billions of the data now you can handle in the Power Pivot. That's the beauty of that. So you can really, really now use big data, very big data. That's why I said that, you find people saying that switch over to the Power Pivot. Not just because of its great features, like it uses the DAX also. I'm going to talk about the DAX also in the coming sessions. With this entire series, this entire training will not be fruitful if we will not cover the DAX, because DAX are the backbone of the Power Pivot. Okay, so we will definitely go and cover the DAX. In fact, we will go and cover the DAX only, and then we see the use of the DAX in the Power Pivot to make the allocated reports. Okay, so these are all those reasons, a big data you can handle easily. Apart from the big data, you have a DAX formula language, which means that now you can control the pivot. You can go and find out the top 10 values, top 100 values, top 50% values. You can go and filter the table inside the pivot itself. You don't have to really go and change your data. So there are a lot of things. I'll not get into that. First, guys, let's make sure you have installed the Power Pivot. Okay, in case if you find any problem, you can let me know. And also, now these are such a basic things, you really don't need any, I think, the tutor for that. Even if you Google, you can just come across the different kind of, the blogs, websites, which are telling you the procedure, right? I mean, in case if you're not able to install anything, you can go and take the help. However, I'm always here. And also, a lot of guys will ask me the compatibility thing. So, I got this from the Google. I was surfing. So I just thought, let me share this with you if you can see this, right? So maybe when you Google, you will find all these different office products. Like they say that Power Pivot can be found in these office products. So if you see the 2019, this is professional and this is home and business edition, right? So there can be other editions also in 2019. So make sure you go and purchase the right ones. Like for example, in 2013, if you look at this is 2013 professional, 2013 standalone, and in the 2016 it comes with professional plus and then standalone. I mean, that if we have a lot of different versions, right, under the same year, so you go and make sure that you have the right one. Okay, and if you look at this Power Pivot add-in for Excel 2010, yes, Power Pivot add-in for Excel did not ship with Office, but it's available as a free download. So that's all. This is exactly the information I wanted to actually give you, right? So once you go on the website, you will download, you find this sort of the file, which is going to download here, the exe file. Just go and run it and your Power Pivot will be installed. Make sure you have all the information, about the system requirements that you can find out on any website, right? But generally, as I said, that with these versions, nothing is going to stop you from downloading it, right? It uses 1 GB RAM, I guess. All of our systems now by default use 4 GB RAM. Like I have 8 GB RAM because I use Power Pivot a lot and I use a lot of big data and I also use Power BI desktop, so I always preferred 8 GB RAM because that makes my speed, my system speed actually quite good. So these are the things. All right, so guys, you get this Power Pivot installed, and let us now in the next lecture, let's now start talking about that how we can actually use the Power Pivot. What is this manage? What is this measure? And all that stuff. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now after installing the Power Pivot, we know how easy it was to install the Power Pivot. In fact, I say that it was already there for most of the Excel versions. We just needed to activate it. Okay. Finally, we have the Power Pivot, and now we will understand that what are the important things we should know in the Power Pivot. Okay. So guys, the thing is that why you are learning the Power Pivot? What is the need to learn the Power Pivot? Right? Need to learn the Power Pivot. Well, there are a lot of reasons, but because we have just begun the chapter. This is our second lecture only. I'll not get into something which you will not be able to understand. The only few of the reasons which anyone can understand, obviously, is because the large data, right? We can handle the billions of the rows now, right? It's not a challenge. Second is that lookup information is very easy now. Okay, we can look up the information from one table to the another table very easily, because we have some ready-made functionality. So look up information from multiple tables is pretty easy, right? Now, we want to learn the Power Pivot also because obviously, the normal pivot is so powerful. I mean, it can give us a great dashboards. So naturally, after learning this, we will like to create the dashboards, isn't it? The dashboards, right? Because you know that we have the pivot graphs, we have the pivot, those slicers and everything. So dashboards, obviously, we can make the dashboards, we can summarize the reports. So that's why we are going to learn this, the Power Pivot. Now, the first thing first, you learn anything, it always requires the data, because if there's no data, why would you even go and learn something, There's no reason for us to, in fact, there is no reason that somebody would create something, which doesn't use the data. So we have to first understand that where is that window where we go and, use the data, store the data, keep the data, because Excel has only 1 billion rows, you know that. And if I'm talking about 2 million, 3 million, 5 million rows, where are those rows I'm going to keep it? Because this is not the right place. Okay. So let's first of all understand that. Now, to understand this, I've created this intro file, and this is just a small data. So there are 1, 2, and 3, and 4 tables. I'm right now starting with the first thing, which is that how to get the Excel sheet data into the Power Pivot. If you know that, you can go and use some external data also. You can bring in the text file data, CSV file data. You can also connect with the SQL Server, MS Access, anything. It's the same concept. In the Power Pivot, you have the manage, measure, add to data model and the KPIs. Okay. The window of the Power Pivot is going to be called as data model, because we do the data modeling there. What do you mean by the data modeling? I will get to that at the right time, but you can understand it's basically handling the data. You know your data pretty well. So how to work with the multiple data points, different tables, and arrive at some calculation, the calculation you needed. That's called the data modeling. Okay, working with the data. Now, the first thing is that this table which I have created, I've already created this, I have given it a name. You can see that this name is bookstore. I hope you all know that how to do that, right? It's Control D. You have to create the table here, okay? Before you take this in the Power Pivot. So just Control T and this table will come. Normally, when you, have some data, for example, if you have a data here, name, this, let's say like this. Now, if I want to export this data, I want to take this data in the Power Pivot window, I have to create a table first of all for this. So you can press Control D, or maybe you can go in the insert, and you can say table. I want my header, so that's how it is. So now this table is ready. Okay. Why we do that? Well, I'll just explain you. even if you don't do it, Power Pivot will itself create this. But you should know that, why this, all the formatting sort of thing is coming, right? Table has great features. If I add anything here, for example, here, it will automatically be a part of that table. So Power Pivot will use this data whenever there is some addition or subtraction. So you don't have to go and, worry about that. What if the table increases? New values coming, will it take or not? Yes. If you just refresh, it will take. That's why we create the table. Okay. So I have created all these tables, and you know that when you have a table, when you select inside this cell under the table design, this option gets highlighted. Otherwise, if you are not here, if you're off the table, you don't see that table. So when you click here, you have the table design. You can go in the table design and you can keep the name here. You can write whatever. So I have already given this name. You can see it's a bookstore. We will use this table in the coming lectures also. So let's make sure that we understand this table. So we have some book IDs, unique IDs, their library, education, comic, storyteller, history, the book name and the author. And on the another table, it's a very small table. This is called the customer purchase table. So any customer who is coming, he's paying what he's paying for that book, maybe monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever. It's a amount paid for to buy the book, or maybe a rent, whatever. Let's not get into that. Okay. So here, because a book name can be repeated, after all, if one customer has purchased the book, same book can be purchased by another guy also. It's a sort of bookstore data. And here we have the library address. So education library is on the first floor, DD floor. It's on the Avenue Market, all that stuff. And then there are some unique list of the customers also. Okay. Right now, we only want to see that how we can take this data in the Power Pivot. So it doesn't matter whether these tables are related with each other or not, however they are. So first thing first, when you have created all these tables, different tables, and you should give them the name, because if you don't give them the name, they will have a table 1, table 2, table 3, and that's not the way we go and work with in the Power Pivot, right? Because you should know that which table you are referring to. This will help you a lot. Technically speaking, there will be no problem, but when you write when you work with the Power Pivot, when you write their functions, then it will be very difficult for you to which, table you are actually referring the column. You're writing the formula. So that's why I've written the names. Okay. So after writing the name and the way I want, we go in the Power Pivot and we say that let's go and add to data model. So your cursor should be anywhere between this range, add to data model. You see that Power Pivot window will come now, guys. So this is now the Power Pivot window. Okay. Initially, it looks very, very, it doesn't give you that a good feel because we all are used to of Excel, but gradually you will get used to it and you will start liking it. In fact, you really don't have to do much work here. Whatever you will do, in the formulas. Okay. But yes, this is also important. This is your sheet and you go and change the look of the sheet. You can add, subtract the columns here. So this, you can say that it's kind of an Excel sheet. And this is where you will have those millions of the rows stored. It never shows you the entire data. You see that you can increase and decrease the space, but it will never show you the entire data. So basically you have to scroll down, right? And we don't even need to look at the complete data. It's okay, perfectly fine. We'll see to that. So this is how we can add the data. Now, once you have added the data, you can go back to the Excel. You can click on your Excel, sheet again outside the Power Pivot, or you can even close this. That's all up to you. I don't want to close it though, but I have closed it. Now we go here and say add to data model. So you have to go and add these Excel sheet data one by one. You see that the sheet name is also coming, cost purchase. This is very nice. Let's go here in the intro and I click here and I say add to data model. So again, now you will have the Power Pivot window. In the same Power Pivot window, you will have this data also. So any data which I need to use in this, the Power Pivot, I have to go and, get that data over here. That's the first thing. Right now, I'm only telling you the data which is actually in Excel, but it can be from some another sources also. I'll show you all these things one by one. Getting the data in the Power Pivot from the external sources is not tough, guys. It's a ready-made tool. It's a ready-made wizard, right? The only thing is that after you have a data, then how to begin. Okay, so let's make ourselves comfortable in case if you, let's say, want to delete this. Let's say you don't need this data, you can delete this. Okay. Now, for example, I go back here in Excel file from the outside, and let's say I want this, the cust data to be added. So I added the data. Okay. Now, once I've added the data, let's say I don't want this data in the Power Pivot window. You can delete this. Right click, delete. You can even rename this. You can even move, from one place to another place. I'll not talk about the rest. Let's say I delete this cast list. If I delete the cast list, then what will happen to the Excel sheet? This is the question. As a beginner, it should come in your mind. Well, we can check here. Let's go and click on this. You see that this is there. Even if you, let's say, want to refresh the data, you can just go and refresh the data, and you can see that it's there or it has gone. Let's click on the refresh all. Okay, so this data will never actually be deleted unless you delete this from Excel. Please understand that. Okay, so you have the choice to go and push this data into the Power Pivot. You have the choice always which data you want. It's not necessary that you have to go and export or bring the entire data, all these table data into the Power Pivot. It depends what I want to do. If I don't want to work with any table, I can just go and delete that. Okay, so another thing, like if you want to expand the width of these columns, you can go and in case if you want to check a value which is not fitting into the column, you can increase the width of the column also. Okay, now this is your basically a data. Of course, we can all check, and this place is basically used for the DAX. The DAX measures. Okay, this I will start in the next lecture. So here we write basically the formulas. We all know how to write the formulas in Excel, but we never learned actually how to write the formulas in the Pivot because there was no DAX. Now the DAX is coming. DAX is your data analysis expressions. Okay. Of course, we can create some calculated fields in the normal Pivot, our traditional Pivot, but that is far, far better than all that. There's no comparison basically. Okay, so this is a place where we will write the formulas so that we can see the data, and at the same time we can see the formula result also. Okay, what about the another things? Now, for example, if you want to add the column, you can add the column, right? Let's say I want a column which should give me something, let's say maybe a 500 value. For example, I want to create a profit. So how you can do that? Well, if you select this and you start typing profit, your cursor will go here, and this is something which initially makes you very uncomfortable because you have an Excel background, and you know that you are very fond of and used to writing the things on the Excel cells itself, right? But here it doesn't work like that. You go in any cell. Let me first press escape. I'm here, and now I want to write something here. Let's say I write P. It always takes you to the function bar. Remember that. So you can write the function from anywhere. It doesn't matter. Like for example, I say that profit. So you don't write a profit like this. And you say colon and equals to. So what is profit? Well, the profit is 5%. For example, I want to create this extra field. So I go and press enter. Now see what will happen, guys. Profit 5% should be created here. The following syntax error occurred. Invalid token. Sorry about that. Basically this. Let me just go and write here only the 5. Let's say only the 5. Okay. I go and press enter. Maybe you can write the profit percentage. That's fine. Okay. I go and press enter. So you will find here now a column which should give you a value called 5. Look at this. Right. Now, once you have the name, you can of course double click on that and you can change the name. So I go and write here, profit. Profit, let's say percentage. Like this. I can do that. Right. Because once you have the name, you can rename it. But you see that how the function is working. You can select any of this column, doesn't matter. You have to go here actually. Even if you start typing something here, let's say I start typing Ajay, it starts going here. Okay, so this is something you need to understand. So let's say I say loss, or maybe let's say I say that constant. There is something I want to write. Now you see that when I say colon equals to, and I say, let's say it's hello. I write hello, let's say, and I press enter. I just press enter. So the first thing is that before the colon, you have your header, which is going to now start reflecting here. Now you don't see that here. You see that here. Here, this is just the value. Okay. So the value automatically goes to the entire row. This is how you should go and make yourself comfortable. In case if you want to change the name now, because the name is already there, you just go and, right click and say rename the column. If you want to delete the column, you can delete the column also. Are you sure you want to delete the selected column? Yes, I'm sure about that. So I can even delete the column, the column is gone. Okay. Now what happens if, let's say I click here and I say that testing. Okay. And I say equals to, and I say, let's say a number called 4. Let me press enter. What happened now? The formula must start with an equals to sign. Hey, equals to sign. I've already put the equals to sign. What's wrong with that? Well, you have to go and write here a colon, then equals to. This is very important, guys. Okay. Now your Power Pivot will understand that testing is your header name, and underneath header, you have the values, which are, coming here, 4 and 4. Okay. So this is something very, very important. Now, what if you want to, let's say, sort this table? Can you sort this table? What you have here, smallest to largest, largest to smallest. So if I click on this, this sort, if I just hover here, you see sort the selected column so that the highest value are at the top. So once I do that, automatically it will pick this value. Okay, let me just change this. Or what if you have, let's say, library selected, and now you want to sort this Z to A? It is a text value, so you can't sort now in the ascending, descending, common sense, So guys, I write here, let's say A to C. You see that? A to C is working. If you want to clear the sort, you can clear the sort. But these are the options I'm telling you. This may be coming handy somewhere, but generally we don't really go and use all that stuff here, because Power Pivot is all about creating the pivots using the DAX, the formulas, and taking the data to the, totally a new height. You can just go and fully control the data now. What data you want, what data you don't want, every sort of thing. Top performance, bottom performance, middle performance, filters, everything you can now go and do that using the DAX in the Power Pivot. So now, just to recap, this is simply a data coming. These are all the different tabs. These are all the table names which you create. By default, they will come here, right? And you can just go and, if you want to add any column, let's say, you can add the column. Remember that this column is added on in the Power Pivot. This does not mean that if I take you back to my intro sheet bookstore, you find here that column. No, it's not there. Whatever you go and insert here as a column, that will be a part of only the Power Pivot. So you can sort, you can, all that ascending, descending, whatever. This is called your measure window. Here we write the measure, and of course you can increase and decrease the size of that depending. If you have a lot of DAX to write, maybe you can increase the space. And this is your scroll bar. You can just go and, keep scrolling and check, the data. So these are the few of the points. And remember that you noticed what I said, that your DAX is the name comes and then colon and the equals to. Otherwise, if you simply go and write, as I said, that you start writing here, let's say header equals to something, this will not be allowed. Okay, you need to put the colon here. Remember that, this colon. So, and then, you go and say equals to, and then you go and start writing, the headers, and automatically it will fill all the rows. Well, gradually, as we, move ahead, I'll keep telling you all the important things, basic things, important things, everything we'll cover. But for the time being, now you know that where to actually go and take your data in the Power Pivot. And this is the basically Power Pivot window, right? This has nothing to do with the Excel. The only thing is that in the Excel, if you, have a data, and let's say if you go and, for example, I write here a different number. For example, maybe this is my data. Let's say I go and write here some number called dummy, okay? And I go and write here this, and let's say dummy. Now, what happens, you have done some, changes. You have added the data. So if I have to see this data, first I save this file. Once I save this file, I go back to my Power Pivot if it is already open. And now I go in the cust purchase, and here I will go and refresh. Or maybe you can refresh the entire thing. That's all up to you. Let's say refresh all. This pop-up will come and it will show you that all the, the data are refreshing. If you want to refresh only the cust purchase, don't click on the refresh all. Okay. So once this is done, well, it is telling me all the data or this transferred. So maybe now I can go and check my last row, which should have a dummy entry, just to see that if it is done or it is not done. So here we are, and I just quickly go and scroll. Look at this now. It's coming there, right? So with the refresh, your data will come. Why? Because this is an Excel feature. This is a table. You know that in the Excel, if we create the tables, then they automatically, start taking the new data into them. And that's the reason that we always use the tables, so that Power Pivot, we don't have to import the data again and again in the Power Pivot. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the next thing. Okay, guys, welcome back. So in this now, today's session, I like to talk about that, how to bring the external data, okay, into Power Pivot. Now, when we talk about the external data, basically we say that it can be a text file, okay, which is outside of your Excel. It can be your Access database, it can be your SQL Server or any other database. It can be the CSV files, and it can be the external Excel file as well. Okay, so we need to now see that how we can get the data inside the Power Pivot. Okay, so we I show you here in this chapter. This is my text file. You can see here a very small text file, and this is the data I need to get into my Power Pivot. So how you can get the data, the first thing. Then we also talk about the another external file, which is my Excel file, which is intro file. Okay, so in this intro file, let me do this. You see that I have a table here. Okay, let me delete this. So how I can actually go and bring this Excel file data into the Power Pivot. Okay, and same way you can go and use the Access as well and the SQL Server. So let's quickly close this, and let's get back to the Power Pivot, the Excel file. So we go in the Power Pivot first of all. From this, the Power Pivot window, I click on this, the Manage, and we then can see the Power Pivot, the window, and through that window, we need to go and import the data. So this is some of the previous data which I don't want actually. Let's do this from the scratch. So I quickly go and delete all this data. Okay, I should have deleted this before, but it won't take much time. So let me delete this. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. Okay, so this is done. You can see that the window is clean. When I was deleting this data in different sheets in Power Pivot, last time I remember, one student asked me, said that, so you can delete all the sheets, all the data from the Power Pivot, like in Excel, you can't delete more than, you can't delete the, if there is only one sheet in Excel, you can't do that. Excel doesn't allow you, because at the max you must have one Excel sheet. But Power Pivot concept is not the Excel concept. You need to understand. Power Pivot is your choice. If you want the data, you go and bring the data here. If you don't want the data, obviously you will never come in the Power Pivot window. Okay, so deleting the Power Pivot sheets, as you saw, it's different from the deleting the Excel sheets. Okay, moreover, we call them the tables. In the Power Pivot window, every sheet which you see, basically that holds a table. Okay, so remember this point. Of course, we can delete it. Now in this whole down, if I click here from database, you see that I have the option from SQL Server, from Access. You can use this. If you're using the SQL Server, if you're using the Access. They both are databases, very popular databases. Okay, every business analyst must know these two databases. Okay, so now we go and click on the from other sources because I want to bring the data from the text file. So you click on the from other source and you see that here you have even the another database which is called Oracle, Teradata, Sysbase. These are all the different databases. Okay, so you see you have some flexibility. Power Pivot can take the data from anywhere, and that is a fantastic thing. Okay, so we don't want these databases right now. So I simply go and scroll this down, and now I want the data from the text file. So I click on the next. You have to browse the path. Okay, so once you have the path here, you choose your path. So let's go to the desktop, and over here I choose the Power Pivot folder, and then in the Power Pivot folder I go in this chapter number 3, and in the chapter number 3 you see I have the text file. So I click open. Okay, so once you have the text file here, you see the text file format here. You can see that. Okay, this is how it is. I can even go and increase or decrease the width of this. Okay, so this is how it is. Use the first row as a column header. Yes, I want, because name, rank, designation are my headers. Right now, Power Pivot window generated the F1, F2, F3, F4, these type of headers. So we don't need that. Okay, we want a proper heading. So you have the heading here now, and then you go and say simply finish. Okay, so once you finish this data will come in the Power Pivot. Okay, let me close this. So right now we are just making ourselves comfortable with importing the data from the different sources. You should know that. Okay, so this is done. Same way I can go and pick the another Excel file data. So again, you can just go and say Excel next, and again you can browse. This time my Excel file is in the same folder, so I can quickly go and use this intro. And now again use first row as a column header. Then you click on the next, and you see here we have that the data. This is the name of that table. Okay, so I click on the preview and the filter. So if you click on the preview and the filter, basically this tells you about what data you're going to have here. Okay, which is perfectly fine. So I simply say finish. Now the next data which I'm printing here, there are 20 keys which are transferred, so that the data will come into this sheet. Okay, so you now can make the dashboards using the Power Pivot from the different sources as well. We can, in the future sessions, we will see that how we can go and connect this data with this client data. Okay, of course, there are some conditions. You can't, just like that, create a relationship between the tables. There has to be some common fields, okay, through which you need to interact with one data and the other data, okay. But right now, I'm just telling you that this is how you can bring the data. It's pretty simple, okay. Of course, if you want to bring the data from Access also, like from Access, I'm not prepared for this Access. I haven't used my Access for a long time. But maybe if I can show you, quickly, if in any of my Access on my desktop, if I have any Access database, like yes. So for example, this is the one I click on. Okay, I open it. Okay, right now this is not required for us, so I simply say next. And now select a list of tables. You need to select the list. You can even write the query. It's up to you. What do you want? Okay, that will specify the data to import. So basically, your table can be huge, for example, right? So in case if you just want the selected data, you can use the query. Okay, right now I simply use the table which is already available in the Access. So you see that I've got here 2 tables. So let me click on this table 1. Okay, and finish. I really don't remember exactly what information is there. Okay, so I click on the finish, and now there are only 8 rows in my that Access. So I close this, and you see that how easy it is to bring the data from even the databases. Okay, like this. Now in this table, this is the Access database. So let's go back and bring more data. using the query. So you see, I have here employee ID. Now, employee ID, let's say I want to have greater than, 1000. Only that data I want. So you go in the access. Now, obviously, if you don't know the access, there's no point of using this option. You need to also have a familiarity with the access. The basics of access you should know. Okay. So again, we browse the information. So you see, you find here the write a query that will specify the data to import. So now if you know the SQL query, it's very easy to write it. Okay. If you do not know the SQL query, then obviously you need to first get the understanding on the SQLs. Okay. Now many people say that since we are writing here SQL, many people, they come to me and they say that they want to learn the SQL, but they say they want to learn the SQL. They basically say they mean that they want to learn some database. They want to run some RDBMS, relationship database management system. Now, guys, there are a lot of databases. You saw that just a couple of minutes before. There's a Oracle, there is a DB2, there is SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, right? There are hundreds of databases in the market. SQL is not a database. SQL is a language. It's a standard language. In before I think the 1970s, SQL was also known as SQL. Okay, SQL. Some people still call it SQL. Well, there is a history to that. We'll not get into that. But basically, SQL is just a language which can be written in all the databases. So it is decided that SQL should be accepted as a standard language and it should be used in all the databases so that there should be not a problem for users like us that if we are switching from one database to another database, we have to learn a different SQL. I think that would have been a very, very messy situation because for every database, then you need to learn a new SQL. So I don't know. How would you do that? Do that? It definitely would be a very difficult thing. So remember, SQL is just a syntax, right? A language, database language. We use this language, okay? So now I say that select all, star means all. So I write select all from. Now you need to, write the table name. So my table name was, I think, table 1, right? I can see that because it shows for the table name. So when you bring the data here, it's basically the sheet tabs, as I said that I really don't want to call them sheets. They should be called as tables. So that sheet name comes here. So I see that select all from table 1, but then I put the where clause. Okay. So here I write where employee ID, which is my header, greater than, let's say, I write here 700, for example, like this. Okay. So this is the name of your query. Okay. You can write whatever you want. Now I simply go and say finish. In case if I want to validate it, you see that this says that this is a valid statement. Okay. So I click on the finish and it's importing and you see that it has imported only the 3 rows. Okay. So once I got this data, this is very nice. So I have got the data here now. Let me just go and close this. Okay, so we have the data here, and this is the same data which we have imported before also, but this was the entire data. So out of these now, I have only got, these 3. So whether it is your SQL server or it's your access, it doesn't matter. Okay, here you write the server name basically, right? Server name, and then using the SQL server authentication window. Authentication window means it's the window login which is going to be used. If you use the SQL Server authentication, you have to provide the username, the password. Window means if you have authenticated the Windows when you switch on your laptop computer, you provide your passwords, on the username. So that's basically window authentication, which does not require any username and password. Because this means that if you have already verified your window, if you have successfully already on your laptop computer, you don't need anything else. Anyways, this is something different concept. But what I'm telling you that this is how you can bring the data in the Power Pivot. Okay, so it's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful tool to do the analysis which are supposed to be done through using the pivot. Okay, if you want me to tell you about the differences between Power Query, Power Pivot, Power behind, and M code, whatever DAX, you can let me know in the comment section. Okay. So guys, right now we are comfortable now with importing the data. In the last lecture, we learned how to bring the data, if it is in Excel, the same Excel. Now we have learned actually how to bring the data from the outside. Okay. So if I have a data over here in Excel, different data sets, and I want to get that in the Power Pivot window, we learned in the previous lecture. Today, I told you how to bring the data from the outside. Okay. So this is how it is. Now, once you have brought the data here, let's go back to the manage. What do you want to do actually? This is a Power Pivot. So you can't do anything over here. I mean, you can write here some DAX formulas, which we will talk later. But majorly, this data is which you have here. That data has to go to the pivot. Okay, that's why you have brought this data over here. So now I say that, and in the pivot table, I click on the pivot table option. For example, in the new worksheet, I go. So when I go in the new worksheet, this is where you have the same pivot you have been using from from maybe I'm using the pivot more than I guess more than I think almost 16, 17 years. So you click on this the show field list, and this the field list is going to mesmerize you because this is not a normal pivot. You will find here all the tables, all the data. You see that generally when you create a pivot, you always see one that specific data. But here I can now go and talk with all these different datas. It's very wonderful. Okay, so I can just go and say that I want the name, for example. I want maybe the sales done by this. I can use this. In case if I don't want, I can go to the another one and I can just go and use this one as well, book ID. And let's say maybe I want to check something else. I don't know, but you can create the pivot sort of in this way. Okay. Of course, if these tables have a relationship together, they have a relationship, they have a common field. You can even go and sort of use one item from one field and the other one from another pivot field. That's wonderful. Okay, that's something which we basically call data modeling. It's all about the relationships, like a VLOOKUP you use in Excel. Okay, so this is something we'll come in the cover this in the coming sessions. Okay, so that's it for now. So now let's talk. Let's wait in the next lecture. Okay, so guys, welcome back. Please settle down. Let us start the session now. Everybody, please go on mute. Okay, thank you. So last time we talked about the Power Pivot features. Okay. Now you know that how to import the data, right? How to import the data from external sources or within the Excel file, right? So after importing the data, once we have the data, we now need to understand that how we can create a pivot, okay, Power Pivot, and why we want to create a Power Pivot. What is the advantage of this Power Pivot? So if you remember, I was talking about a term called DAX, okay? So today we will talk about the DAX, that what is a DAX basically, okay? Now DAX is your data analysis expression, okay? Data analysis expression. This is actually a formula language, okay? Like you have a formula, different type of formulas in Excel, In Excel, we have basic formulas and then we have advanced formulas, okay? So the thing is, in Excel, the formulas are the backbone of Excel, because without the formula, you cannot be called as an advanced Excel user, an Excel expert. Same way in Power Pivot, if you do not know the DAX, you can't call yourself somebody who knows how to work on the Power Pivot, okay? Because you see, the point is, Power Pivot actually is, I won't say derived from Pivot, but Power Pivot is a kind of pivot actually. Okay, or I should say that it is a pivot. It is a pivot, right? But it is a pivot, but it is very efficient. It is very, very efficient. It's 100 times, I can see 100 times stronger, powerful than normal pivot. Okay. So when we call that it's 100 times powerful, it's not something theoretical. Okay. It's not just on books you read. They call it majorly for two reasons. The one is it can work. Your power pivot can work on millions of rows, which a normal pivot cannot. And that's the greatest gift given by Microsoft to its users, because we all know that if I go and use this much data, 1 million rows, and I supply that to my pivot will crash. Even in fact, why are we even talking about 1 million rows? You just talk about 500,000 rows, pivot will stop running. Your Excel file will start hanging, isn't it? So that's a very, very advancement Microsoft has done it, and that's why the Power Pivot is now used and preferred over normal pivots. Okay. The second thing is that now we have a DAX here. So Power Pivot can use the DAX. Okay, so we can build the DAX formulas in Power Pivot. In the normal pivots, you know that there is no scope of building any formula. Okay, so pivot was more of a normal pivot. It was more of a using the already inbuilt features, isn't it? Using already inbuilt features. But now we can build a lot of different type of formulas, and we can do the different type of analysis. So the more formula you have, the more analysis you can do it. The more deeper analysis you can do it. We will talk about this. I'm just giving you an idea. In the the normal pivot, if you remember, we used to have an option called the calculated field, where we can use something divided. If I have to divide some header with some other header or plus minus, then those were the only minor things we could do in the normal pivot. Okay. So I'll give you a good amount of, we will have a healthy discussion around this piece in the coming sessions, because right now I don't want to show you any PPT. Neither I ever teach on the PPTs. The thing is that I want to first cover these DAX functions, you have understanding, and then we will come back and we will go and discuss that. Now let's talk about the differences. Let's see that. Let's recap everything and let's look at back the kind of the pivots we have been using from ages, So how now, what is your preference? Which one you would like to choose? Okay. So guys, we are talking about the DAX now in the Power Pivot today. Now, when we talk about the DAX language, you must understand there are two terms in the DAX. One is called the calculated columns. Okay. Calculated columns. And the other is the measure. Okay, we can even call them as a DAX measure. That's perfectly fine. DAX measure. Okay, we call them measures. Okay, and this is why DAX calculated columns. You can call it this way also. Okay, so what is a calculated column and what is a measure? They are very different from each other. Okay, they are very different. They are different from each other. They are not same. Okay, from functionality perspective also. Okay, and from fundamentals also, they are very, very different. So we need to really, really understand these. So let's go to the manage. I have already got this data in my Power Pivot. I'm using this measured calculated column file. So let me click on this manage. Now, first of all, let's take the help of Excel. We all have been using the Excel a lot. Excel is in our blood. Isn't it? I have been using Excel since 2003, I guess. Right? So my hairs are even now white. I have now, known so much so many things in Excel. I have learned so much about Excel. Of course, learning never stops. But the point is that if all of us have an Excel background, these are really going to help us a lot. Okay, but don't think that creating a DAX or working with a Power Pivot, it's very much similar to working in the Excel. It's very different. Okay, now for example, let's immediately start. Now, guys, you have here. Let's pick this table called the customer purchase table. Okay, this is my table. Okay, now I want to first of all tell you that this is a intersection line. You can see that this line is always there. You can scroll it up and down just to, increase the view of this data. Otherwise, it's not really required. Okay, so it's there so that we can have a data over here. And if I have to build some formula, I can build the formula here. So this is basically this area. This area is on formula. Okay, now when we say formula, you see I'm typing formula. The formula gets typed in here. It's not visible here. Don't be surprised. Okay, let's press enter. The moment you press enter, this is where you see the formula. Okay, so basically I'm talking about formula means I'm actually talking about DAX measures. Okay, this area is where we go and write the measures, the formulas. Okay, this area. You can increase or decrease this area. Let's say if you want to write here DAX measures, DAX formulas, and you need more space. So you can just adjust this according to your requirement. This is the only thing. Okay. And here you have a data so that you can see the column headers also, which we are going to use in our DAX formula. Okay. I know I'm using two words. Sometimes I use DAX formula. Sometimes I use measure. DAX formula is a generic term. DAX formula can be a text calculated column or DAX measure. So the question is, you're going to ask me, I know that, please tell us immediately what is a calculated column and what is a measure thing. Right? The first thing, let us start with the calculated column. Now in Excel, let's imagine you are sitting on Excel. Okay? I'm saying that you need to increase the price of each of these books by $5 or by 5 rupees, whatever the currency in whichever country you are right now listening to me. So what will you do? How will you add 5 to these different rows, values? In Excel, if you're supposed to do, how will you do that in Excel? You will go here, isn't it? And you just type the same, and you say, I want to add +5, isn't it? That's what you do, right? Same process you will follow in the Power Pivot also. But the thing is, when you go here, so here I want to create a new revised price, the paid price, okay? So guys, if you go and press equals to, you see that you are not going to see the equals to here. Equals to will print on the formula bar. And that's going to be a kind of little shock for you for the first time because you're not used to this, isn't it? Okay. You can go to any cell. Let me press escape. Let's say I say here equals to. Equals to always pops up here. The formula which I will write here and then I press enter, it will distribute the formula that formula will spill over to these rows automatically. So you don't have to drag anything. For example, let me press escape. Let's come back here. So I said that, you need to add what? You need to add basically 5. So I say equals to, and you will go and select this table. I click on this. The moment you select this table, this is how it is going to look like. There is no A1 referencing type here, R1, C1. Please understand in the Power Pivot. You will not get the cell address like, A1, A2, A3. No. This is how the Power Pivot will give you the column name along with the table name. What is the table name? Customer purchase. Customer purchase, in the square brackets, you have this field called paid. I'm going to say that +5. You just go and press enter. The moment you press enter, what will happen? See this. It's refreshing. Okay. So you will have the 5 added automatically. Okay, so you don't have to drag anything. You can write the formula anywhere, anywhere. It does not matter because it's not using the R1C1 type of the reference. So you can pick cost purchase paid from any this row, and the moment you press enter, everything will automatically publish here. Did you notice one thing? Your column name, which you have now created, this says calculated column. So guys, this is what is all about the calculated column. Calculated column is a column which you and me are going to insert in this data. They are not coming from the data. They are being created by us because of our requirement. So it's like in Excel, you go and use the additional column and you write the formula. That's what is called the calculated column in Power Pivot. So this is all about creating a calculated column. Now, the thing is that, as I always say, your sheets, even if you are a VB developer, you create the modules, you create the macros, they always should have a meaningful name. So we can't leave the name just like that because this is a by default name since you have not given any name. What I wanted to give here, the new name is revised speed. So what you have to do, ideally, what you should do is you go and first write the name. So what we are supposed to do is you are going to go here and you click here and we'll give the name called new privacy paid, for example. Okay. If you press enter, see what happens. Equals to is not allowed in the Power Pivot. If we all are from Excel background, so I'm telling you all this step by step. Formula must start with an equals to sign. Well, the formula is starting from equals to. What is wrong with this? So what you have to do is you actually have to put the colon here. New price paid, the column header, colon equals to, and then whatever the formula you have to build. Okay, using constant or table field headers, whatever. The moment I press enter, now this is what you see here. New price paid. Do you understand this? Okay, let's do this once again. For example, I go here. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to create a column which should give me 2 categories: less revenue, high revenue, for example, right? Now we all know if functions. We will talk about the if in DAX also, right? It's very different. I mean, concept is same, but the functioning is quite different. But for now, I'm just going to build a formula that if the paid price is greater than 30, it's high revenue, otherwise it's low revenue. So we want to go and create, a column here. So what we will do, again, you can click here directly or you can start typing here. It's all up to you. How I do is I directly go here. I directly go in and I say that, that's a category. So I'm going to write here guys category. Colon equals to. This is how we write it. Okay. And then you start writing if. The moment you write if, this reminds us of the Excel. If logic test, result if true, result if false. It's the same logic, same functionality. So we have an advantage here of knowing the Excel before learning Power Pivot. Okay, so we simply say that now I'm going to select this. If I select this, I get the book name here. Sorry, not the book name, but the paid. Okay, but you don't have to select this. You can even start typing it. So I'm going to tell you now this thing. The column header is paid. So I will start typing paid. The moment you start typing paid, everything related with the paid word will pop up here. It's popping here. So what you need the cost purchase paid, because this is actually the field which you want to use. Now, what is this? New price paid. This is the one I have created. Okay. This paid is what? This paid is, again, this is our field, but we prefer using it with the cost purchase, with the table name, the cost purchase, the table name. Okay. Cost purchase, new price paid is also available. So you have a table name with the field. Now, what if I go and simply use the paid, for example? If I say paid and I say that if the paid is greater than 30, then in the double quotes, I write high revenue. Okay. So I write high revenue. Otherwise, I write low revenue, for example. This is what I write. You close the bracket, right? Once you close the bracket, we will go and press enter, guys. Right? So the moment I press enter, now you see that I started getting here my high revenue, low revenue. Everything is there. Okay. So I have used this paid. Okay. I've used this my paid, the field. Now, what if I go and prefix? if I don't want to, let's say, use this field header alone, you can use this with the, you know, the table name as well, customer purchase. This is your cost purchase. Start typing cost purchase and you will get the cost purchase on the fields. So I can use this as well. It's one and the same thing. The problem is that why we prefer using the, this table name, because you may have paid in some other field also, right? And while working on the DAX in the measures, if I go and prefix the table name, for me, it will be very clear that which actually column field I'm using. Okay. Right now, let's not get into all those things. Well, we are very far away from those things. Let us just know one thing, that I'm using a table name with a field name. If you want to use the field name also, it's okay. As on date, it is okay. Okay. Because we haven't really covered anything concrete. Okay. We're just learning the basics. So I prefer, I go and press enter, and I prefer using the customer, the table name along with the field header. The end of the input was reached. The calculated column contains some syntax error. So let's go and check the syntax error. Now you see, I have got here one extra closing parenthesis, because you see, if it's using only one open parenthesis. Now that's really, something I say that, I don't know, but I personally, I don't feel that this is a good thing, because in Excel, you know that if I have any extra bracket in the end, not in the middle, in the end, Excel always corrects it for me. Okay. So in this case, you have to be a little careful. So I go and this backspace this, okay, and I press enter now. Okay. So you see that, so there's a problem. One second. I have created everything, customer chase. Yeah. So let me press enter. So there is one scale bracket. I think I've got it created here. Okay, so it's good. We are getting the errors. You will be comfortable now. So scale packet is removed. Close parenthesis is removed. Let me press enter, and now we should be able to see this. So it's a good thing. These errors are coming because when you go into the practice for this first time, it takes a little while for you to get comfortable with this sort of requirement. So now you see that we have created here a formula. Okay, a calculated column. We call this a calculated column. Why calculated column? Because you see, you are actually creating a separate column here, which is always going to be calculated if you do any changes in your table, in spreadsheet, in Excel spreadsheet. Okay, obviously this will also change. So the point, if you have noticed here, we actually have started getting here the new headers. You're getting the point. Now, the thing is that if I go and create a pivot from this, remember last time we created a pivot. So I say that let's go to the pivot table. So what will happen to this pivot table? Let's create a new worksheet. Well, needless to say, the fields which you have created, they will be visible. They will be visible in your, the pivot. Okay. So let's go and check that. Otherwise, what is the need of creating those fields? Isn't it, guys? Right? Common sense. So now if I pick my table, the table which was, I think, cost purchase, I should be able to see all the fields here. You see that I have a new price paid. Okay, so I can use this. I can go and drag this here. This is my new price, and if I have this information based on my customer, I can use that. Okay, now, so this is your calculated column. You got the point? This is my calculated column using calculated column. Okay, now let's go back to the Power Pivot in the manage. Okay, so what is now a measure, a DAX measure? This was the DAX calculated column. So it creates a separate field and it works row by row, isn't it? That's why we call this also, that this calculates everything row by row. This is a row build text. Okay. Now, guys, the point is, let me ask you one question before we start with the DAX measure. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the DAX measure. So now the DAX measure, whenever you create, you don't create all these columns. First of all, you don't create all these rows. Why? Because your DAX measure is always going to be created on the entire column. Okay, entire column. What does that mean? That means, suppose if I ask you, suppose there is a question, and the question is that we want to find the total paid, total paid, total paid amount. For example, this is what we want to find it out. How will you calculate the total paid amount? In Excel, what will you do? You will simply go and say sum, and you will select this entire range, and you will get the answer. Right or wrong? Right. Okay. Now, the thing is, if I am asking you what is a total paid as per your data, including every book, right? Tell me one thing. Are you going to create a column for that? Are you going to say that, okay, there we go, total paid colon equals to, and then sum. So we have a sum here, okay? And what is the column name? Let's say the column name is paid. Customer purchase paid. Let me go and press enter. What will happen now? What will happen? On every row, you will get the same number, 392, 392, 392. Tell me, is this not actually alarming you that, this is stupidity? This is really looking something, nonsense, isn't it? I mean, why do I need to have this 392 on every, the cell? No, that's not what I want, right? No. As an argument, you can say that, so what if I need it? Maybe I want to divide total paid with this, the paid amount, and I want to check the contribution. Let's not go there, okay? Let's not go there. I simply asked you about the total paid. In Excel also, you will never create extra column. You create a formula which simply says sum, and you provide the range. So in the same way, in Power Pivot, this window, this is what actually the DAX measure is going to do for you. So DAX measure does not work like a DAX calculated column. DAX column always works row by row, whereas DAX measure works on the entire column. So it depends what are you trying to achieve. You can use either DAX column or DAX measure. If you go in Google, you may find a lot of people talking about, oh, use always DAX measure. That's the more, the beneficial thing. Calculated columns are not so good. Well, I think it depends upon the requirement. If something is there, it has its own use and importance. We will talk about these comparisons later. Which one is good, which one is I would say bad, but which one you should use when. Right now, we are only learning how to use them. So we will quickly go here. I'm gonna now write a formula here. Okay. So what I will do is here that paid, I will write paid, total paid, okay, total paid, and then colon equals to, I'm gonna write sum. Okay, you see, I'm writing the sum. Then you put the column name. Column name is paid, so I write the paid, PA, and this pop-up, this IntelliSense counts, and we will use the customer purchase, this paid. Okay. Now close this, press enter, and let us see now what is going to happen. Okay. So this is your basically DAX measure window. I have got my 392. This was useless. This is very much, needed to me. Okay. So I have got here total paid, and I'll also do one thing. There is a space here in the total paid, but I'll use this as my DAX. So I'll write every formula, I'll begin every DAX measure as DAX underscore. However, calculated field, I will just give a simple name. Okay. So that when I have a pivot, when I'm on the pivot window, I should know that which one is my DAX measure and which one is my calculated DAX, calculated column DAX. So now 392, I can format this, guys. Okay. How I can format? The moment I have selected this, right? So you see that here in this home tab, I have a currency. So I can just go and use any of the currency. Okay. Let's say I want to give this a dollar formatting. So you see that now you have got the dollar here. You can increase or decrease the width of these columns in case if you have, let's say, something you're not able to see. So you can always increase or decrease, feel comfortable with this. These are all those actual the tips, which are going to help you with. Okay. So this is my $392. And of course, as you know, in Excel also, we can increase or decrease the decimals. So if you want, you can go and decrease the decimal also here. Okay. So this is how we can do the formatting also. But make sure first you are on the right this cell, because if I'm here, there's no point of giving this a formatting. You will go and give the formatting to this particular part. Okay. So anytime when I need a calculation of the entire column, I will go and use the DAX measure. Anytime when I want to do the calculation based on row, each row by row, I will go and create a DAX calculated column. Now, this is not only the thing. We have more things to understanding these two terminologies. Like what? Let's go back to our Excel. Okay. Now, I can go, if I want to create a pivot, I can create a separate pivot also from this. But since we have already created a pivot, so I simply go and, just close this. And we are now back on our Excel sheet. This was the Excel sheet, right? And this is basically your comments. Okay. So before I, let me take this to the pivot. Okay. So this is pivot. Now, let's right click here and let us go in the show field list. So this is my table. Now, I was telling you that how you are going to distinguish between the DAX calculated column and DAX measure. This is the difference. You see that? New price paid was my calculated column. But if you go and create a measure, I'm not every time going to say DAX measure. Okay, if I'm saying measure, it means DAX measure. If you create a measure always uses this FX sign. So it tells you the story also. So in the same pivot now, you have the calculated column and the measure also. Okay, so the point is that when I say, I told you that, when you're going to use this called the calculated column, calculated column. You see how it works? It actually works row by row, right? It works in a row context. This is called the row context. Okay. Now, the thing is, then how your measure actually works. Now, this is very important. Measure always confuses students, right? Because you need a proper systematic approach to understand this. If you're going to jump from one topic to different topic, not if you don't go in the second topic, step by step, what I mean to say, you will get confused. Now, measure actually works on the filter context. Oh my God, filter context. When the first time student read any article or go and watch any sort of YouTube video, they get confused. Oh, what they are talking? Filter context? What is a filter context? How? Why it is important for me to understand the filter context? What understanding advantage I will have in, understanding the measures if I know what you mean by a filter context. Filter context word is very, very important in measures, guys. I'll tell you why. Now, I want to create a pivot here. Okay, a separate pivot. Not this pivot, for example. Okay, or maybe let's create this pivot, the same pivot, Control C. And I go here and I say Control V. So I have the same pivot here. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to remove everything from this pivot. Okay, there we go. Now, tell me one thing, according to your normal pivot knowledge, guys, if I simply go and put this DAX total here, what will happen? Or here? What will happen? Come on, quickly. Yes, you will get the total. Of course, the total paid, which we saw in that the Power Pivot window, isn't it? 392, isn't it? So this is looking like a normal pivot, isn't it? There's no challenge here, right? Now, what happens if I put the book name here in the row? Are you going to get 392, 392, 392 for every book or what? As per the normal pivot, whenever you drag anything here in this row section, the total gets evenly distributed. Not evenly, I mean, but it is going to be distributed based on what book you have in the row section. So this is what exactly is called the filter context. This is very important. I have a total. I have a total here in the Power Pivot. This was my total 392. But this 392, if I'm going to create a Power Pivot, and in that Power Pivot, I put some fields in the row section, in the row section here, in the row section here, or maybe here, maybe here in any section, that total will then be recalculated according to these fields. We call this called a filter context. I know you might be thinking, oh, this is very easy now. So what is actually, I mean, this is not new thing because we have been doing it in normal pivot also, right? Well, yes, right now this seems easy and I'll make this easy for you, don't worry. But the point is, you have to remember this point because sometimes when we are going to create a complex DAX measures, okay, then the calculation you have to think in creating a Power Pivot is based on what you are going to put in the filter context, not by just the total. So many times students get confused there because right now I've just created a simple sum. So it's very easy for us to understand. Now, what if I tell you that there is a formula you have to create a measure which should give you the top 3 values, top 3 revenue, okay? Now, when you're going to create a top 3 revenue, you must understand that if you drop that top 3 here in the pivot, how that filter context behaves. So we will talk about all those things. So now you understand what is a row by row context. What is a row by row context? Or the filter context, right? So row by row context is pretty easy because calculated column, when you create a calculated column, obviously if you have 500 rows here, all the 500 rows will be calculated separately based on the values of these, okay? And if you want some value, if you want a number which should actually which should be working on the entire column and you are expecting a one single value, there is no point of creating a calculated column there. You will go and create the measure, right? And you will simply use the sum. So now you also saw that it's not that, we have some sort of constraint that if I can use the sum as a measure, I can't use that as a calculated column. Of course you can, okay? But it also should make a sense that if we are using it as a calculated column or a measure, is it going to work or not? That's the important point. Okay, now I'm going to give you one more example. Tell me one thing, guys. Now, let's say what I want to do is I want to create here an extra field tax. So I'm not going in my table. I'm creating that field over here. Okay, so I create here, let's say the tax. Okay, and the tax is going to be just a $3. So I go and press enter. Okay, so we have here now a tax as 3. Okay, I'm asking you one thing. Can you give me the total? Can you give me how much we have now paid for this entire data, including the tax for each of the book? How will you do it? So basically you want to multiply every row with the tax and the numbers which you will get, that you need to add. Getting the point? So the first approach is because this is all the different paid amounts. So I prefer using the calculated column. So what I do is paid, I create a header paid with tax. Paid after tax actually. Okay, paid after tax. Colon equals to. So what are you going to do? You're going to say that paid, right? You will use the paid. Where is my paid? Paid plus my tax. right? Cost purchase tax. The moment you press enter, what will happen? You will have all the tax created here. The row by row, you will have all the tax calculated. And once you have this, then you can take the help of the tax, and you will write here, let me write here tax underscore paid tax. Paid, let's say paid with tax, for example. Okay, so now what we will do, we will now use the sum, and we will use this paid after tax, isn't it? We can do that or not? Tell me one thing. We can do this, isn't it? So here in this type of exercise, what we did is that we actually used first the calculated column, and then using that calculated column, we created a measure, right? Make sense? Now, of course, in the coming chapters, when we will learn more DAX functions, I will show you that there's no need to create here the extra column. I can do everything here in the measure also. We have some specific DAX, specific DAX function for that. So why I don't want to create this? I mean, what is the point? Because unnecessarily you are actually enlarging your data. Your data size, will increase if you keep on creating these calculated columns. So we can avoid it in case if it can be done by using a measure. We will talk about that. I mean, this whole thing in the comparison, which is better, between the measure and the calculated column, as I said. But for the time being, you are understanding how we are going to, do our calculations. Okay. So say, guys, if I ask you that, can you give me the average of this total field? You will use the DAX as a measure, isn't it? So we'll use the DAX average with the formula bar as a colon, and I can use the average. So I use the average, and I say that first purchase, I can type in the first purchase also, and then in the first purchase, I will be targeting the field called paid. So it's better I can write paid. You will find all these things, by yourself gradually, which one is better. So first purchase paid, I press the tab just to complete this, and I go and press enter, So I'm using the measure. Okay. So I can reduce this, the decimals, for example. So this is how we can use the DAX as a measure or as a calculated column, right? Now, before we wrap up this section, if you have to find out this high revenue and the low revenue, right? Will you use the measure for that? You will not use the measure for that, guys. Understand? How can you use the measure if I have to get the high revenue and the low revenue based on each of the row? Because if you start writing here the if like this, let's say I'm using DAX if. So I write here DAX if, for example, colon. Okay, I start writing here if. You see that? I write here if. The point is, if you are going to use the if as a measure, you are supposed to use the entire column. Okay, but here I want to see every category differently by row. You're getting the point, right? So, can I use the if in this way? This is the thing. Can I use my if in this way? No, you can't use. Because if I start typing paid, for example, this is my paid. Let me write here paid. Let me write this paid, cost purchase paid. Okay, let's say you say cost purchase, if that is greater than what? 30. Okay. Okay, it's going to be high revenue, right? High revenue. Otherwise, it's going to be low revenue. Now, let me press enter and show you what will happen if I go and press enter. Okay, this is the same formula we have used in the calculated column. I go and press enter. I want to use it. Okay, so what? This is what exactly I was talking about, guys. You will get the error. Read the error. A single value for column paid in a table cost purchase cannot be determined. This can happen when a measure formula refers to a column that contains many values without specifying an aggregation such as min, max, count, or sum. Wow, this looks very beautiful, very logical, self-explanatory when you become master. Otherwise, as a pressure, this looks horrible. This error, you don't understand. So I'm going to tell you important words. It says aggregation. DAX, if it is used as a measure, as I said, it's going to be used on the entire column. So entire column is aggregate. We call these aggregate functions like sum, min, max, isn't it? In Excel also we call them aggregate functions, right? These are all called the aggregate functions. So you have to make sure that if you're using any function in a measure, it should be used as an aggregate function. Okay? Otherwise, this is what the problem will come, because it says that, there are so many rows here. I can't give you the result in just single cell, We don't call it as a cell, but, truth, I mean, I think when I say cell, you are understanding what I'm saying, right? So there are so many cells here. There are so many rows here, field values here. You just can't go and use this in this way. So the question comes now, can I not use it in that as a measure? You can, but you have to use this if in a manner that it should be looked by this power pivot as a aggregate function. So how is it possible? This is something we'll talk in the next lecture. So getting the point now, right? First thing is, if you can't use in a measure, if you have so many rows and each of the rows you want to calculate it, and it makes sense, and that's what it says. A single value I can't give him from this table without you specifying, using any aggregation. You have to use the aggregation. You have to use this if in a way that it picks up the entire column. Right now, when you say cost purchase paid, it's actually not picking the entire column, because if is going to work on this one by one, and that can happen only in the row context when you create the calculated column. So I'm not saying we can't use the if as a measure. Of course we can, but there is a way, and that way we will go and talk in the next lecture. Now, before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you, tell me one thing. What is the maximum value in this column called paid? What is the maximum paid? What is the max paid? Are you going to use the measure, or are you going to use the calculated column? Quickly tell me, what is the maximum value if I have to find out in this table, in this column paid? Yes, you will use the measure. Good. Who said that? Anil? Good, Anil. So you say DAX, max, and you simply go and pick the paid. You go and pick the paid and cost purchase paid. You press enter. Okay. Now, what happens if you use the max here? You'll get the 44, 44, 44 everywhere. Does that make any sense? No. That's not going to make any sense. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to ask you, right? If I want to see the final paid amount, after subtracting $10 from it, what strategy will you use? Which will you use the measure or use the calculated column? So I want to see a new paid after minus, let's say $10. Okay, this is what I want to see. So what will you do? You paid for each of the row after $10. Yes, you will use the calculated column. Okay, so we will write here revised. Okay, revised underscore reduced paid price. Okay, so you simply can start typing the paid cost paid minus 10. You press enter and there we go. So you will have the values here and along with the header also. Okay, so I can give the Of course, I mean, the formatting here also, that's perfectly fine. You can give the formatting here also, in the DAX measure also, and here also. Okay, so let's go and talk about the if as a measure. If I have to use the if as a measure, okay, because we all know how if works. At least nobody is here who I know that who can say that I don't know about the basics of if. If is very simple. I'm not talking about nested ifs. Simple if, put the logic and then see what happens if it is true or false. Okay, because I think if is the best function to give you understanding on how the measures work. I know you know now that how the measures work. They work like, if you put anything on the row side in pivot, they all get, recalculated based on those headers, right? But as you saw that we were getting the error in the if, so this is something we would like to take it up in the next lecture. Because right now the question comes, if I can use the if max, if I can use the sum, then what is the problem here? Why I can't use the simply the if over here? What is the challenge? Okay, what does it means when it says that you have to use the aggregate function? Okay, so let us meet in the next lecture now. In the next session, we'll talk about that.
So hope that you have liked the video, you have liked the content and the content quality also. Thank you so much for subscribing to this channel. Your support, your love, and seeing that every day it is increasing. And I shall see you now in my next video. Thank you so much.